What age did you lose your virginity, and how did it happen? 14 or 15. Her older sister put us up to it. It was the 60s, and we kind of felt it was our ethical responsibility to experiment. We were really more friends than dating. Her older sister had once showed us how to French kiss by demonstrating on me. We were all quite relaxed about it. I can peg the date roughly by the Beatles. We had just acquired Sgt. Pepper's and were probably listening to it at the exact time. It was at her house, her parents were out, her sister was in the living room waiting to hear how it went. What I remember most, the way she folded her clothes and put them into a neat pile as she undressed, and how tightly she squeezed her arms around me. 16 years old, in the back of a mid-80s Chevy Cavalier convertible, in a mall parking lot, top was up and it was dark. Didn't bring a condom, went in raw. Was awkward, not all spacious, and spent the next month a nervous wreck until she got her period, which, of course, according to her, was totally on time every month except for this one, where I probably blasted the biggest load of my life inside of her. She was a week late, but she got it. We hadn't been together very long and basically slow-faded each other after that. 13, 7th grade. Was dating a 14-year-old 8th grade girl who was also a virgin for 4 to 5 months. There had been lots of kissing and heavy petting and dry humping going on for several weeks, and then she told me her parents were going to be gone all day and that I should get a condom and come over. We lived in a very small town of only a couple thousand people, and everyone knew everyone, so I was scared to go to the drugstore to buy condoms. Ended up going to the gas station and trying to buy them out of the machine in the bathroom. Couldn't figure out how to get the machine to work. Went to my girlfriend's house and told her, and she went to the gas station and had no problems. I didn't realize the quarters had to be stacked together in the tourney slot thing. What can I say? I wasn't thinking clearly. So, we are at her house, and I am in her room, which was mind-blowing in itself. It smelled so good in there. She told me to get undressed and get under the covers, and she'd be right back. She went and changed into some lingerie set. It was dark green and very high in the hips. Totally 80s. Not flattering at all, actually, kind of funny looking, in my opinion, but I definitely didn't tell her that. So even though we had fooled around tons before and knew about foreplay, as soon as she got in bed, I went straight to doing the deed. She had told me that it might be painful for her, so I went super slow. Still only lasted about 2 minutes, lol. I apologized for not being able to go longer, said I was too excited. She said she could tell and that it was good for our first time. We hung out for a while and then I left before her parents got home. She flushed everything down the toilet as to hide the evidence. Well, it didn't go down. Her mom found it. She was surprisingly cool about it. Got birth control for her. I can't actually recall other specific times we had sex. 20 plus years ago. Oh my god, I feel old now. But I know we had sex pretty regularly, and even though we used condoms and she was taking the pill, we still thought our lives were over a couple of times when she was late. We dated for a total of about 18 months until she cheated on me with my older cousin. Yeah, small town. He gave her herpes. Gotta love karma. Everyone here seems to be in their mid to late teens, but I, 29 male, lost mine at 21 to a girl in college. Most of the people I slept with actually said they lost it in their mid-20s, but they are older than me. One woman I dated actually lost her virginity at 30. In all instances, we had a discussion before doing it. Never had a one-night stand. I had bad sex and good sex. People have called me handsome and hot, but I don't see it too much. I don't work out too much, and I have been rated 7 out of 10 by a few people, so I'm definitely not a model by any stretch. I bring all this up because I want to address the nervous guys on here that feel like they'll never have sex in their lives. My advice? Relax. You'll be okay. Follow through in things you like and put a mild effort into your appearance. $80 at Target goes a long way for clothes and exercise equipment. Go ahead and ask her before you make each step. Date, make out, sexy time. If she says no, stop making moves on that girl and you gotta move on. It won't be easy, but you'll get there. Remember, the girl you want to sleep with might have the same sentiment as you as well. That's what makes sex feel so good, in my opinion. Well, seems I was a lot later than everybody here. 25. Yep. I was friends with a girl that I met through World of Warcraft of all things for a while. I was always at her place to play video games and or chill. I thought I saw signs she might be interested in me, always hugging me, laughing at the stupidest jokes I make, always inviting me to stay and sleep in the same bed, so I finally made a move. Kissed her and moved in permanently the next day. Even though our relationship didn't end the way I wanted, we still lasted a good 4 years together. I was 19, Looking back, I had several opportunities earlier than this, but I was a total chicken shit when it came to talking to girls. Anyway, I was working in a supermarket in the deli. One night, while closing, one of my coworkers approached me and said, "You've had plenty of chances." I'm like, "For what?" I should mention, she was 24 and married with 2 kids. She then says, "To kiss me." I was a little confused because I had no clue this would be something she'd want until she said something. Anyway, we ended up making out for a few minutes. Then the next day she comes over to my house and we get to it. I was done in about 2 seconds. It was so embarrassing. She was totally awesome about it though, especially since it was my first time. We just kept messing around and went for it again, and it was much better. We ended up hooking up several more times and I was falling for her. I went into work one night and she wasn't there. I asked why she wasn't there, and they said that she had come in earlier with bruises all over her face and quit. I never saw her again, but she did call me like 3 months later. She called and asked if we could be just friends. I was young and heartbroken, and I said no. I sometimes regret that, but it was probably best for me. She never did explain what happened or why she moved suddenly. I can only assume one of her kids told their dad about me. I was 18, her 17, kinda rushed, to be honest. I knew a girl was into me and I wasn't totally into her, but we still went out for a drive in my newly acquired 97 Dodge Neon. Well, we had a great drive on the country back logging roads, and at the end of it, it was dark and I gave her a kiss. Little did I know she was so smitten with me before we even left on our date, this simple kiss kicked off the night and we both lost our virginity on the front seat of my car. The sheer rush of emotions and hormones was too much for me to handle, to be honest, and I flaked on her. She was heartbroken. I was an asshole. Years later, I did apologize, after moving away, and she said she forgave me, but I know I was an asshole and it will haunt me till I'm old and gray. 12 was at my aunt and uncle's 2x40 birthday party. Besides the family, they had invited their entire cul-de-sac for a big barbecue. One of the neighbors had this cute 16-year-old that I had spent most of the party with, and at the end of the night, she did invite me back to her house for the night. And it was the night I lost my V-card. And family being family, couldn't help but tease me when I got back the following day. Heck, my uncle told me at my granddad's funeral a few years later that she had recently become single, so he could get me her number if I was interested. 21-year-old. Late, I know. Dating and girls weren't a priority for me when I was in high school. Wasn't the type of guy to sleep around either. I wanted my first time to be with someone I cared about. My first real girlfriend, long distance, we met while I was in the Marine Corps. Friend of a friend that came to visit him. We talked about sleeping together a lot, just needed an opportunity when we were together. My family was a total cockblock. My mom would cancel her personal plans to make sure she stayed home with her and I to prevent us from being by ourselves. Annoying, right? My mom had an errand to do, so obviously we were up at like 8 a.m. on the way to buy a condom. I lasted like a minute. Felt embarrassed, but she said it was okay and was glad that we got to make that connection. Relationship lasted almost 3 years. The only girl I've ever been with. LOL. 13 in a pile of hay behind an outdoor basketball court in my neighborhood. She was very insistent on it, but I was 13 and it was outdoors, so I couldn't get it up. A couple years later, I had a more normal encounter with a girl in her bed. I was lightning fast and tried to keep going, but I got soft and the condom slipped off inside of her, and she was very bothered by that happening. Any virgins reading this? Just don't expect it to be good the first time. It's when you find someone you're comfortable with that you get to have plenty of sex without being nervous or worried, and eventually get enough practice and be really good at it. 15. I suffered really badly from social anxiety, having one lifelong friend I could always rely on. This girl knew I suffered and reached out to me one day. It took everything, but I asked her if she wanted to come to a party with me and my aforementioned friend. She said yes, but I wasn't convinced. She came out to my friend's car when we picked her up, though, so I was a bit more confident. At the party, though, I knew there was no way that I could go down into the basement with the crowd of way cooler people from high school, so I went and stood by myself in a hallway. The girl saw me and talked me into coming downstairs. She danced with me, and one thing led to another. We had sex in the host's room minutes later. I was 14, he was 15, both virgins. We were at his aunt's house. Up to that point, it had been a lot of kissing, touching, and petting, but nothing else. I had no intentions of losing my V-card that day. We were in her den, watching the Discovery Channel of all things, LOL. Then one thing led to another, and there I was, on the floor. He scooted to the furthest corner of the room and put on a condom, so all I could see was his back, LOL. Then he crawled over to me. I was watching the TV, Flamingo, LOL. to try to distract myself. It hurt, of course, because there was zero prep beforehand and neither of us knew anything about taking or losing virginity, and it was over in probably less than a minute. But I tell you, teenage boys are resilient because he was hard again in less than 5 minutes. LOL. Didn't happen a second time, though, because his aunt walked in the room. His dad came to pick us up shortly after. He was really sweet on the way home, holding me and asking me if I was okay over and over. Held my hand as he walked me to the door and gave me a kiss goodnight. 20. About 2 months ago. My GF and I had been dating for just over a year. We had done sexual stuff pretty much since we started dating, but never had sex. Then about a week after our 1-year anniversary, we were getting extra freaky and I asked, "Should I just grab a condom?" Unfortunately, she did break up with me a couple weeks ago. Won't give details, but I'm much better now. But that was the first time for both of us, and personally, even if we never get back together, I'm glad I lost my virginity to someone who loved me for me. I know that sounds ass backwards considering the breakup, but trust me on this. It wasn't even a bad breakup. And she did it in the most gentle way possible, wishing me the best before she hung up. 19. She was a 34-year-old supervisor who invited me out to lunch one day. I worked second shift. And while eating my salad, I casually asked, "What did you want to talk to me about?" Figuring it was something to do with work, she replied, "I want to fuck your brains out." And I stopped chewing, swallowed, and said, excuse me? I'm not sure I heard that right. I was crunching a couple croutons. Would you mind repeating what you had just said to me, please? She smiled, and did, and I grinned, and said, "Okay, I did hear you correctly." She replied back, "Well?" I looked at her, smiled, and said, "Hell yeah." I was 15. I had been dating a 16-year-old girl for a few months, and we were both virgins, so when we finally decided to go all the way, I felt like I had to make it special. I mean, this was the moment I've been thinking about since puberty hit, and from reading my dad's Playboys, I knew all too well that women didn't have the best of times the night they lost their virginity, and I didn't want to be remembered that way. My cheesy teenage ass got a music player, lit candles, I even got a rotating disco light. I assume teenage me had his reasons for that, but for the life of me, I don't remember what possessed me. Then, when my parents went to bed, I strategically placed a ladder right outside my window so she could sneak in. Turns out, set and setting isn't a substitute for skill. We started slow and all, but I was still clueless on how to touch a girl, so it was more awkward and clumsy than I imagined it going down in my head, even with all the insider assistance I thought I was getting from reading the Playboys. For a while, when I looked back on it, I'd laugh at how relentlessly lame I had been that night. But after reconnecting with that girl years later, I found us laughing about it and her telling me how cute it was that I had put so much effort into making the night special. I realized that the experience wasn't as lackluster as I thought. It was a special moment for both of us in the end, and if I could go back, I honestly don't think I'd change anything. 15. I was tall for my age, shaving, looked several years older. My older sister brought a friend home from college. They were supposed to go on a double date. The guy backed out. So they enlisted me to be her date. I was into playing football and had very little experience with girls. I was shy and not sure how to behave. The girl, Stacy, was cute as hell. We sat in the back seat, kissed and made out, what my sister was doing with her BF in the front seat. It was fun. We didn't do any groping, just kissing. The next night, I had a game. When I got home, Stacy was there alone. My sister went out with her BF. Stacy told them she had to study. The rest of the family was at my brother's game about 60 miles away. I was sitting in the kitchen eating sandwiches, and Stacy came to talk to me. She told me that she enjoyed kissing me last night, that I was a good kisser. Then, like a lightning bolt, it hit me. Stacy was wearing a thin t-shirt. I could see her nipples through it. She had on these tight shorts and little makeup. She was trying to get my attention. We moved to the sofa. We started kissing again. She took my hand and put it up her shirt. First time I felt titties. Then she started rubbing my cock, asking me if I had ever done it before. Nope. We went into my room, on my bed. She asked me if I'd ever seen a girl naked. Nope. She undressed in front of me. I was so hard it hurt. She peeled my shorts and underwear off, produced a condom from somewhere, climbed on top of me, did some squishing things, and sat on me. I didn't last very long. Then she showed me how to get her off with my fingers. I went with my parents to visit my sister in the spring. Saw Stacy again, but never had an opportunity. 18. Not too long ago, actually. Me and my friend, let's call him Z, were talking on Snapchat. V snapped me if I wanted to hang out at his place, and I told him sure. I then asked if he wanted to fuck, and he agreed. So I convinced my mom to letting me go to his place, even assuring her that nothing was going to happen. Well, the day arrived, and I got to his house. He gave me a tour, and we talked for a bit. I then asked if he wanted to do it, but he said that his dick wasn't hard, so I began rubbing it. Once I felt it get hard, I took off his pants and began giving him a BJ while also kissing his chest, thighs, neck, and even making out a bit. Overall, it was an amazing experience and I had tons of fun. I had made a previous post surrounding the fact that I had lied about who I'd lost my virginity to, but I didn't go into any detail about anything else, so I'll post the rest here. When I was 14, we got a new girl in our year. Her and I quickly became friends, and I also befriended her younger brother, who was in the year below us. 13, he was 8 months younger than me. Her brother, although younger than me, was super experienced in all that kind of stuff. Well, for that age. Whereas I was still pretty shy. He and I took a liking to each other really quickly. He was so forward and kind of took me by surprise, but I was so intrigued and excited by him. In fact, one day he kissed me out of the blue in front of everyone without a care in the world. Meanwhile, I just sat there like a stunned mullet. Anyway, his sister and I became the best of friends. I genuinely adored her as a friend, and I knew what I had with her brother would make her mad, so I just never told her, or anyone else. One day he texted me to meet him uptown. We only ever interacted at school and when I was staying over at their house, but only so much could ever come of that. We met up and walked to a local swimming hole. There were a couple of people there, so we decided to just go swimming until they left. We swam for a bit, and then eventually the people left, and we got out of the water and sat on the bank. I wasn't as shy by this point. He and I had been doing stuff for a few months now. He basically taught me everything I knew. We fooled around for a bit, and then he asked me if I wanted to lose my virginity to him. I didn't freak out or anything. We had condoms. We weren't stupid, so I said yes. We were super young, but I can honestly say I don't regret it. He and I continued our secret love affair right up until a few months after he finished high school. We never dated or anything. To this day, I still can't think of what to call what we had. We genuinely loved each other, but always dated different people. But that never stopped us. He's still around, and we're definitely still on good terms, but we've both grown up and have our own lives now. I still reckon he'd be down, though.